the Shanghai upgrade is coming up for Ethereum, and that's probably going to be the inflation bomb that we've been talking about on this channel for 5 or 6 months, 7 months maybe. But basically, a lot of the staked Ethereum that was on the Beacon chain before the merge will eventually be released, and those staking rewards, you know, could end up hitting the exchanges and stuff like that. Now, I don't know what's going to happen with this stuff that was staked out on these different centralized exchanges, and then the SEC attacked them for selling unlicensed securities. So it's hard to say when that'll be unlocked, and I'm not really sure on the percentage of people who actually had, let's say, 32 Ethereum and just staked it themselves, or went through a decentralized mechanism, or an unregistered exchange that was in China or somewhere else. It's really hard to say. It's kind of unpredictable, but I think that we will see somewhat of an inflation bomb hit, and there will be some additional stuff that gets sold, because some of those people have had their funds tied up for almost a couple of years now. So we will see what happens with that. Now, in other crypto news, basically Polygon became the second biggest gaming blockchain, supposedly, according to certain metrics, and it overtook HIVE. Now, HIVE is not what is traded, you know, on the U.S. stock exchange as HIVE blockchain, like mining technologies, whatever like that. It's the HIVE blockchain that was a fork of Steam. So Splinterlands is one of the most popular games, and that's on the HIVE blockchain. And there's other stuff going on there as well. But number one is Wax as far as gaming. And that's, you know, was basically an EOS.io iteration, implementation, specifically more for gaming and NFTs and stuff like that. So Wax is supposedly number one, Polygon second, HIVE is third, and BNB, the Binance Smart Chain, is fourth, supposedly. So anyway, that's where the gaming is taking place. There are, you know, other blockchains that have tried to focus on kind of the gaming aspect and stuff like that have not been able to gain as much traction as those others. So now crypto prices, Bitcoin hovering around 28,000, and we got this Ethereum price that's hovering around this 1,800 mark. Gold is right around $2,000, and silver seems to be hanging around $25. Now, in a whole relation, everything that's been happening, gold prices or silver prices really have not impressed me that much, because even with all this inflation that's happened over the last 2-3 years, those prices have not really kind of banged out hard yet. I do think that you're safer holding gold and silver physically than you are keeping your money in a U.S. bank account that's backed by nothing. Now, I don't like the gold and silver play, because those are, in my opinion, manipulated markets, and really has not performed that well. You know, gold was, in the year 2020, gold was right around $2,000, and then it went down, and then went back up to $2,000, and it went down, and then it's back up to $2,000. Now, maybe it does punch through, and maybe this is kind of its awakening or whatever, and it punches through, and with some of the other issues, people do run to it, but just a lot of friction getting in and out of it. Like I said, I mean, I look at these assets as something you move in and out of, and don't fall in love with them per se. Obviously, if stuff got really, 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 really bad, your ammunition, your guns, your canned food, all that kind of stuff, and your ability to be self-sustainable, like as far as growing gardens or raising pheasants or chickens or something like that, would be obviously more important than gold or silver or crypto or some other fiat currency, whether that be Russia's currency, China's currency, the euro, US dollars, all that kind of stuff. So you know, that's just the way I look at this stuff, guys. I just, you know, in my opinion, I think that we're gonna kind of be in this weird situation where some stuff is going to inflate and then some stuff is going to go down in price. For instance, let's say the cost of eggs or certain things like that, different food prices. There's going to be this like shrinkflation, but like, you know, you'll get less, but it's going to cost you more. But then in some of these like housing markets, Tucson, Phoenix, Vegas, Boise, Idaho, Austin, Texas, you know, obviously the California markets, all that kind of stuff. And I think there we're going to see a deflationary situation where the price is going to go down, but it's still so overpriced. And we've kind of talked about that on this channel, that you got these $900,000 tract homes in a place like Palm Desert, California, and you're just thinking, how is anybody really affording this? And then you see articles where, you know, for instance, Bank of America was going to roll out a program where if you're black or Mexican, then you can just automatically qualify for the loan. You don't need a loan. And then we have this recent news, obviously, with the FHA loan modifications where people can modify their loan to 40 years. So there's certain things that will kick the can down the road. But yeah, you just kind of scratch your head and you're thinking $900,000. But in the LA Metro, a lot of that stuff, you know, it's 14 times, the housing prices are like 14 times people's median salaries. 14 times. So in certain areas of the country, it might be 2 or 3 times. Certain areas, maybe 5 times. But when it's 14 times someone's median annual salary, that's actually a worse situation than it was in the Great Recession, 2008, 2009. So at the peak of the last bubble, 05, 06, 07, we're in a worse situation in a lot of these cities than it was then. It's a weird economic environment. We're in uncharted territory of how much printing has went on. And if you look at some of this stuff, and I saw a video from the Uneducated Economist, I think it's his channel, and I've tripped across him a couple times. You probably know who I'm talking about. He read this stuff from the 1700s, and it was basically talking about the life cycle of different economies, essentially. And it was very striking, the similarities that, you know, they pretty much discovered is that, you know, there's this period of time where, you know, a country is growing and there's a lot of hard workers and you basically are manufacturing more things. And then when people's lifestyles actually elevate to a level where it costs too much to manufacture things there, then manufacturing moves out, or the production of anything pretty much moves out, and it kind of becomes more of this kind of service economy. And then, you know, at some point, you know, basically you would have to go through all types of pain to really be able to get manufacturing back, because people don't want to pay the high prices that it would obviously cost to pay employees to manufacture anything. And that's very, very, it just feels like that is the situation with the United States, that in a lot of these kind of, you know, obviously more developed nations and stuff like that, they get to that where you can't really get any work done unless you almost bring in kind of like migrant workers, or, you know, you're opening up the borders and maybe letting a lot of like refugees come over, and from their perception it's like a great opportunity to maybe work some of these jobs, but from the people who grew up here, they don't really feel like it's going to get them to where they want to be in life, and then they just kind of pass on the opportunity. They don't want to do it, or they don't take it seriously. All this is, you know, obviously happen in places like Finland, Norway, Sweden, you know, Australia. It's extreme. I mean, the prices in Australia are it's very expensive in Australia, and real estate prices have obviously stayed up for a long time. They never really went through kind of the kind of crash we went through in the United States. They didn't really go through it as much. Canadian real estate prices are insane, and they didn't go through the crash maybe as much. They didn't really kind of take the hit that some of these U.S. markets took in the Great Recession. So again, we're in uncharted territory, and I think somebody's crazy if they keep their money in a bank account that's backed by nothing, more than enough to just kind of keep the flow going, to pay off some bills and stuff like that. But there are opportunities out there, and I'm gonna dive into that a little bit more. But obviously I started the video with kind of this crypto talk and everything, and a couple of the opportunities I see out there, you can stake cake, like for cake finance on the Binance Smart Chain, and earn around 40 to 41% if you're keeping it in there for longer durations and stuff like that. Now, I started to notice, because people pulled out of some of these liquidity pools that were stable coins, whether it be Tether, whether it be USDC, whether it be Binance Smart Chain, like BUSD, and they kind of pulled out of that, and they gravitated maybe more towards Ethereum or Bitcoin, Dogecoin. They went to their stuff. So that's kind of created an opportunity where if you want to take on the risk, now you have a lot of counterparty risk with these stable coins that are supposedly $1 in the bank account for each one, USDC or whatever. We had this recent, obviously, drawdown where we had the banking situation with Silicon Valley Bank, which obviously was a wake-up call for a lot of people of all the counterparty risk in this stuff. But some of those liquidity pools are up to 10 to 14% on some of these decentralized exchanges like Cake. The reason I mentioned Cake is it actually has stayed, the Cake token has stayed fairly kind of stable in this $3 to $4 range. It's kind of bebopped around, and that's been going on for a while. The BuySwap token, which you guys, if you've been following this channel for a while, I talked a lot about BuySwap. I don't think anybody followed me on that play, and it ended up being a banger, previously, obviously more than a year ago. But you can only earn about 20% on the BuySwap token, in its compounding vault. But there are some liquidity pools that seem to be kind of around that 10% for dollar pegged assets. We've obviously, and again, most of the time people don't follow me in on a lot of these plays, which kind of blows my mind. A lot of people sit to the side, or they don't feel comfortable at this or that, or they're unsure, and then more and more and more time goes by as these play out. Now, there's always risk. There's always risk with all this stuff, and you gotta obviously pick and choose your battles and diversify and do what you feel comfortable with. But again, the HIVE blockchain is paying 20% APR if you put the HIVE backed dollar in savings. Now, and then obviously over on Cub DeFi, which I've mentioned before, some people pulled their liquidity out of there, maybe to go to Bitcoin, Ethereum, Dogecoin, all these other things. And actually, that pool's paying 27% for a BUSD to Binance wrapped HIVE backed dollar. So a lot of people don't want to take the risk on that, or they don't feel comfortable with it. And I understand to some capacity, people don't feel comfortable with certain things. I do consulting, so if you guys are confused, or you want to take advantage of that with some money and stuff like that, we can talk about that, and I can tell you the best routes in and out, because you're always going to have friction getting in and out of this stuff, and there might be some kind of confusion. You have a lot of questions about this, but to be honest with you, that is the best opportunity I see in crypto personally, because I think what's going to happen, we're at this kind of inflection point where it's like you have this banking collapse scenario. but then also people are kind of tapped down on their expenses and stuff like that. And so how much money is going to flow into crypto versus that? I think, you know, obviously you're better off in crypto than not being in crypto, but I think we're going to kind of see some pullbacks, you know, with this Ethereum inflation bomb coming up, and you know, just general profit taking and stuff like that, and just a healthy pullback and stuff like that in Bitcoin. Now, I think that the ship has sailed on this whole thing of going back down to $8,000 or this or that. There's been points where crypto looked weak, and then there's been, I mean, honestly, it's a black swan event with the second biggest bank failure of all time, Silicon Valley Bank. You have all these other bank failures and stuff like that. So the banking system is not in a good position. The US dollar does not, it's weaker. I know it's not going to go away, but we might end up in a situation where we're in this inflationary situation of 15 or 20%. And maybe it's not as bad as Venezuela or as bad as Argentina having 100% inflation in Argentina, but that you're going to have to try to do things to stay ahead of inflation. Now, the kind of like mind bender on this whole thing is, well, if there was all this inflation, and then it's like, well, would people be able to pay off their debts easy, like a lot easier, if all this inflation occurred, and they had taken on debt at lower price points when inflation wasn't running as hot? It's really hard to say. Obviously, like, wages would have to kind of pop up, but, you know, would it get to a point where it's like companies can't get anybody to work for under $50? And, you know, I think that kind of thing is a ways away. I've been honestly shocked at the way some of the salaries have popped up, or some of these wages have popped up. You know, but tell me what you guys think. Tell me if you think that you know, it's best to really hunker down and prep hard, or, you know, if it's just, you're just gonna have to stay ahead of it, roll with the punches, and you got an opportunity to kind of build your position in crypto and keep her moving, you know, kind of thing. Or is this gonna be a situation where, you know, the people are just gonna stay locked in with their low interest rates on some of these real estate purchases, and they're going to be able to, you know, get some equity out of that, or liquidate other assets and stay afloat here. Anyway, guys, follow me on all social media at Brian Phobos, YouTube, Instagram, Steam, and Twitter, Hive, DTube. See you later.